Gentleman yields back and now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Flores, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the witness for joining us today. The ACA required that state-based exchanges be self-sustaining on or after January 1st of 2015, at which point, according to CMS, states can no longer use grant funds to cover maintenance and operating costs. And yet, as you heard earlier today, according to the GAO report, the greatest challenges that states with state-based marketplaces face are 1, inadequate staff, and 2, inadequate funding. And you answered a question earlier, and in that question you said this. You said state-based exchanges are doing better than federal exchanges. So given that the GAO report says that the state-based exchanges are having problems, that doesn't foretell good news for the federal exchange. Continuing, according to the GAO, none of the state-based exchanges were fully operational in all the required functional categories as of February 2015. You heard that from Ms. Blackburn's question. 4 state-based exchanges have already transitioned to the federally facilitated marketplace because they failed to be self-sustaining. So my question is this: how many more state exchanges do you expect to make to fail to make the transition to the federal exchange?
I believe what I said earlier was that states have been even more successful at reducing the uninsured rate. The national average has been about 45%. States that have state-based exchanges have done about 47%. So I think both successful. States even more so. All the states.
Okay, let's go to my question.
Okay.
So, do you expect more state exchanges to fail to make the transition to the federal exchange?
So all the states have access to a source of their own funding, either through an assessment that they have on the health insurers in their state.
So, are you saying no state exchanges are going to fail?
I'm saying all states currently have sources of funding. Now, because it's a dynamic world, we do an evaluation at least twice a year.
Okay, based on those evaluations, how many state exchanges do you expect to be unsustainable and to fail and move to the federal system?
Well, I can't predict who's going to come into the federal exchange, in large part because there's a lot of factors, including their own decision about whether or not they want to make.
So let me continue. Given this trend, do you think that self-sustainability is and always has been a serious situation facing these exchanges, the state exchanges?
So as I said, as of today, all the states are sustainable. Whether they will be in the future, I'm not willing to predict, but as of today, they are.
Well, I don't think the underlying economics of the ACA have not changed since its inception. Now, was there any work that CMS did that could have predicted that these state exchanges would fail? I mean, did you know in advance that any of the state exchanges would fail because of sustainability?
So a lot of this comes before my time. But I wouldn't classify a challenge as a failure. I think every state has had challenges, but every state today is successfully enrolling individuals in their state, and every state has sources of funds sufficient to run their operations. So I would measure that as a success.
When CMS awarded $5.5 billion in federal marketplace grants for states to set up state-based exchanges, how could it have expected states like Hawaii or Nevada to sustain their own exchanges?
So again, these are decisions that were made before my time, so I can't speak to what was being thought of at the time. I can tell you that it's an ongoing process for states to make that evaluation, and as I think you're aware, the states of Nevada and Hawaii have decided it would be more efficient for them to operate maintain the state-based exchange, but use our platform.
Be more efficient because they're broke and they couldn't afford to sustain themselves. You've had us ask questions in the past, how much has been recovered? I would ask for granularity on that, from which states and how much each state still owes that they have not repaid back to the federal government. And the last question is, how will you ensure the states have not used and will not use grant funds for operating expenses after January 1st of 2015?
So we do that. So yes, I will provide that information that you requested. And we do this through several steps. Most importantly is to prevent them from spending the money improperly in the first place. And I think, as I said, this year, 2015, 69 occasions we have rejected a state's request to spend the money improperly. Now, if it turns out that they have for some reason, we conduct an audit and we go back and then we go through a collection process. As I've said, we have the first several states that we've begun the collection process for begun to refund money, and we take that very seriously.
Okay. Thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back and now recognize